That would be me added to the stream there, Mr. Director. Good evening, everybody. My name is Omari Salisbury. I want to welcome you to Converge Media Studios. Whew, it's been a long day today. It's our third show, but this has been probably one of the most impactful here. It's been on the calendar for a minute, and we're very excited to bring you Community Voices, the Vanishing Seattle edition. I want to welcome my co-host for the evening from Vanishing Seattle, Cynthia Brothers.
Hey, Omari. So excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's good, man. I'm glad you're here. This is crazy, this process, right? We initially talked 2 years ago when there was the house there on Judkins. Mm-hmm. Is when I very first contacted you. It was my very first time seeing Vanish in Seattle. And it was a house where a relative of mine used to live. And you were like, yo, it's vanishing. And I hit you up like, yo, it would be dope if we could collaborate on something and tell some stories about what's vanishing and what's staying in Seattle. 2 years ago, but we finally made it. We're here tonight.
We made it. Yeah, it's been a couple years in the making, and here we are. Very exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting. It is. So tonight, this is a two-part series. Tonight, we're talking about Chinatown-International District, and we're talking about the University District. And then next week, we're going to be looking at Ballard and the Central District. And so the format for tonight is pretty cool. We've actually got the 4 original films on the neighborhoods that Vanishing Seattle made. Tonight it'll be the University District film that you made, and also the CID video that you made. And then we produced some pieces as well. Maybe before we bring in our special guest who's back here, you could tell us a little bit about these 2 films that Vanishing Seattle made.
Yeah.
We're going to see tonight.
Yeah, so these Vanishing Seattle films, they're part of a larger 6-part series that was also a few years in the making, and they all came out late last year. So tonight for the Chinatown-International District, we're going to be showing a film on Busch Garden, as well as a piece that we co-produced together on the Massive Monkeys Beacon Studio. And then for the for the University District, we're going to have a film on Hardwick's Hardware, as well as Scarecrow Video, which we produced together, and we're going to bring in some special guests around each neighborhood to talk about the films and their experiences.
All right, before we get into the films, wanted to take a second and actually acknowledge the Seattle Department of Neighborhoods. They've been a big supporter of this project. I contacted Director Mantia and told him like, yo, we really want to be able to honor the legacy and traditions neighborhoods in Seattle and really kind of honor some of the businesses that have vanished, but also be able to tell the stories of either businesses that have been able to maintain or new businesses that, although they're new in the neighborhood, they capture the resiliency, the legacy, and the culture of those neighborhoods. I'd like to take this opportunity right now to bring in Seattle Director of Department of Neighborhoods, Director Mantia. Hello.
Hey, Omari, how are you?
I'm good. Well, first of all, welcome. Maybe go to the wide, Jake, so we can get a nice wave in over here. But there you go, the wide. There. So now we get the wave in. Okay. The Director Mantia, just wanted to give you a second here before we dive into these films. Man, Department of Neighborhoods is kind of like, it kind of is one of those things that sounds like what it is, but it's also kind of like vague and ambiguous at times. It's like Department of Neighborhoods. Maybe you could share with our viewers here, what is the Department of Neighborhoods? What do you guys do?
Yeah, well, thank you. And first, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you to Vanishing Seattle and to Converge for having this vision. And we're just, honored to be a part of it, a little bit of part of it. What the department does is essentially we're a connector. We function within a connector of like connecting community and their needs to what they need in government, whether it be a resource, whether it be information, whether it be information about what's happening down the street in their neighborhood. We really kind of serve as that middle person to connect folks to information. And we do that on the base of relationships. And so we really spend a lot of times working with our community groups and different departments on building relationships and telling those stories. And so a lot of our work is out in the community. A lot of our work is kind of inside City Hall and the walls of City Hall to make sure that feedback and engagement is connected to policy decisions. And so that's what we're doing every day, each day.
Right. And maybe you could share with our audience why Department of Neighborhoods partnered with Vanishing Seattle and Converge on this particular storytelling venture.
Well, one of our core functions, first of all, one of the things we truly believe in is the power of people-centered storytelling. And so Vanishing Seattle, and that's a lot of what Converge does as well. And so we want to invest in that. One of our major values is to invest in the power of community to tell their own stories and improve their own neighborhoods. One of the things we do in our department is create community. We have a historic preservation and landmarking program as well that works in areas, 8 different districts throughout the city, including the Chinatown-International District, all through the city, historic and cultural districts, where a lot of these conversations from community about what should be preserved, conversations about what should grow, what should be preserved is happening. And so it's really interesting to us to be participating in this way.
All right. Anything for the Director Mantia before we let him go?
Thanks for joining and for your support of this Converge Vanishing Seattle venture. And excited for you to see the rest of the program.
Happy to be a part of it. Thank you.
All right, Director Mantia, talk to you soon.
All right.
Okay. So I guess it's time to get into it. We got some good viewership going on over there. People are already commenting on things and everything else. I'll let you lead us into this first film.
All right, so the first film that we're going to share is Vanishing Seattle's film on Busch Garden, which has been located on Maynard in the International District since 1957, I believe. I think it kind of speaks for itself. And why don't we just let them have
as
it.
they say in TV, let's go ahead and play that and discuss on the other side.
There you go.
We found out after it was already done, so we didn't hear about it prior to the beginning. It didn't quite, feel real, and what does it mean? What would it be like to not have the bush? I wasn't sure how to feel about it in the sense of what are we going to lose, a community and our history. Just having that place that can stand the test of time, or has stood the test of time, that we don't lose that.
Seattle losing Busch Garden, what that means. It means that the second oldest Japanese restaurant in the state of Washington closes, that a community resource, a business, a legacy site for the city of Seattle and all of her citizenry will no longer be here. It's irreplaceable. And the fact that it's not being respected by the city, respected by the preservation board, respected by the new owners who think they can put cash down and take whatever they want, is fucked up.
This building has always been kind of a gathering place. It's like there's something about this space that creates that community. When Busch Garden moved from the Busch Hotel to here in 1953, the family actually designed and built all of this.
My father-in-law started it with Fred Hasakawa and his sister-in-law Lillian Tomoda. He had a vision about things, he was before his time. He invented all the recipes and designed the interior and everything. I think it was like a little bit of Japan because we had our waitresses dressed in kimonos, and we had the tatami rooms. We had 40 of them. My father-in-law invented the hole that was underneath the table, and so you could sit down like you were at a chair. And he said that none of the Americans could sit down on their legs and be comfortable, so he designed that. And he put a rug underneath, and then we had little cushions that we all sat on. And then the tablecloth covered the hole, so you couldn't really see anything. But we had a lot of hanky-panky going on. And we had actually Princess Michiko, who is in Japan now, and her aunt and uncle came. And we had to close up the whole restaurant for security's sake because they wouldn't allow anybody. So we had to make all this Japanese food. I don't know if it was as good as the ones they got in Japan, but they ate it. We had cooks, and we had a hard time getting chefs because the immigration would only let so many people in. They kept saying, well, they're taking away, the jobs from the American people. So I said, how many people here know how to make sushi or make Japanese food, And a lot of the chefs that came over finally got their visas and they opened up their own restaurants. So a lot of the restaurants today are run by people that worked for us at one time or another. We started the karaoke bar, later on in the 60s, and we were the first karaoke to be in the whole United States, actually. And at that time, they didn't have the key changers and the video with the words popping up. It was more a scenic video that was on a screen.
We had karaoke here, Japanese karaoke, back 8-track tapes. You're thinking 8-track, and the menus for the songs were handwritten in Japanese. So if you didn't read Japanese, there's no way you're going to sing. And it wasn't popular everywhere. So really, in the API community, is a different kind of world. Here, how it looks now and how it looked then, it was quite different. I think now I really like how it feels. People come in, they sing, they support each other. If somebody's doesn't remember the song and they're having a tough time, the whole room starts singing with them. I love that here people have learned the culture of karaoke in a way that is more of a sharing and supportive way.
Being at Busch Garden meant being not only with some of the best singers in the city and the best drinkers in the city, but also meeting Congress members, city council members, right? State legislators, journalists, artists, activists, advocates, right? And exchanging knowledge, exchanging wisdom, absorbing wisdom and lessons learned, and really becoming a stronger organizer, becoming a stronger advocate. At the same time as you're building community, right?
They started in January, and at that time they said a year and a half. And then as we were approaching the year time, they said potentially it could be, 2 years. There's been a lot of support for us to try and continue somewhere. I'm feeling a little more hopeful and energized about the future of Busch. When the opportunity came up for us to move into the new development, Uncle Bob's place that Interim is doing, it was very exciting. I think all of those things were things that felt really good for us, that they want to build a space that's going to be a community gathering space so people can come and share right there on the corner. I think it's going to be really exciting, and that we get to be a part of that just feels like it is in sync with what Busch Garden is now. I feel the idea about losing valuable things in our community, in our city, that there's a part of me that really wants to push to preserve and not just as a museum place to go recognize and see the story, but something that people can come and experience in a very authentic way. But I don't want to lose the neighborhood and its history and the story it has to tell.
First, we put out every possible aspect of demolition of a place where civil rights leaders that I had looked up to and mentored me for years sang and taught me to sing and have fun and do more than just advocate for new laws.
I oppose the redevelopment of the historic Busch Garden building because the proposed building will not serve a majority of CID residents, immigrants, and refugees in both price and unwieldy scale. I oppose the redevelopment of the historic Busch Garden building because the very soul of our neighborhood is threatened by development such as this.
You know, once you lose the building, Busch Garden building, you're going to lose a lot of history. And it's not necessarily Chinese history. I think the International District, Chinatown, was called that for a reason. It includes a lot of other people besides Chinese people, and we all lived and worked together in this same neighborhood. And I don't feel like erasing 100 years of that history is worth this development.
So Busch Gardens right there. I mean, an incredible story of a business that has vanished, that is no more.
Yeah, well, I'd say it's temporarily vanished. As you know, you saw at the end of the film, its original location is closed as of now, but there's a plan for it to reopen and revive in a couple years at Uncle Bob's Place, which I think everyone is really excited about and looking forward to. So I think there's a silver lining to this story.
Good stuff. Now we're getting ready to take a break, and maybe you can tell everybody who we have coming up after the break.
Yeah, so I'm really excited because after the break, the owner of Busch Garden, Auntie Karen Sakata, is going to be joining us for the conversation.
All right, we're going to take a quick break right now. You are watching Community Voices, the Vanishing Seattle edition.
The Seattle Association of Black Journalists presents the Morning Update Show 1-year anniversary special this Friday, March 19th at 7 p.m. Join the Converge Media family as we broadcast live from the State Hotel in downtown Seattle, and we take a look back at the last 12 months of the Morning Update Show and a glance towards the future. This is a night you won't want to miss and definitely won't forget, as we're also joined by Julia Jesse, Basa Gordon, Marcus Harrison Green, Jake Gravbrot, Be Unique, Dre's, Eric Calligraphy, Bobby Steele, Mike Davis, Carlos Imani, Willard Jimerson, G. Prez Aspie, DJ Topspin, and more. Woo! So save the date this Friday, March 19th at 7 p.m. across all Converge Media platforms.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right, welcome back to Community Voices, the Vanishing Seattle edition. Want to remind you right now, this is a great opportunity for you to tag and share the stream. So if you have not done so yet, please do tag and share the stream with someone who could appreciate this Community Voices Vanishing Seattle edition. Now, Cynthia, we have some people in the green room, in the waiting room. Maybe you can tell us who's there. We'll bring them on screen.
Yeah, so we've got the owner of Busch Garden, Auntie Karen Sakata, and we're also going to be talking with Martin Tran, who is the co-executive producer of Vanishing Seattle Films and also is a filmmaker of this Busch Garden film.
All right, Mr. Director, maybe you can bring in Karen and you can bring in Martin.
Hi.
Hey, Karen. Hey, Martin.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, watching the end of that.
Yeah, it's emotional, right? I still get choked up every time I watch it, no matter how many times I watch it. Well, Auntie Karen, I'd love to start with a question for you.
Sure.
I mean, you've worked at Busch Garden since the 70s. You've owned it since 99, is that right?
Yeah.
You know, just a lot, like decades of history and community in that space. So what was it been like? What has it been like for you, you know, kind of making that transition and, you know, moving all of that history out of the original space?
Oh, it was very hard to make the decision, and then very hard to go through the process. But the one thing that really made it easier for me was that so many people from the community came to help, you know, take it apart very carefully, piece by piece, and, you know, item by item. And, you know, even as we went through all the weeks of trying to pack and move, we found so many treasures. We learned so many things that, you know, were surprises to us. We found some of the original, there was a Christmas card from the original Busch that was housed in the Busch Hotel from before 1957. So, and that story, you know, about, you know, the vision for Busch, it, you know, takes me back. I started in 1969. I think I was still in high school. It was a place where a lot of the Japanese American kids got their first jobs. And a lot of the waitresses were women that were married to GIs, had been married to GIs, or they're second generation Japanese Americans. And it was like a community, because the chefs were from Japan. They were mostly first generation. And it was a place to kind of really, for them to be able to speak their language, for us to connect. And I know all those things made it so special for me that over the years, I worked there in high school, I worked there in college. I went and lived abroad in Japan. And when I came back, I worked as a karaoke host. And then it just, you know, as it turned out, I ended up marrying into the business, and I never would have imagined, but it's been a blessing for me. And having Busch as a community space is so important, you know, place to call home for so many people. It's everybody's second living room, I feel like. And the process was just very, very hard, but I felt like in some ways it was time. So I'm just so thankful to all the community members that came out and helped and made it doable. And I'm looking forward to the new space now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we all are, and Busch is going to rise again. And I just I want to thank you for your stewardship and your, you know, keeping and nurturing community all of these years, and really looking forward to when we can gather in the new Busch in Uncle Bob's space. So Martin, I mean, you obviously have a, you know, personal connection to Busch as well, as do many of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Love to hear, you know, how you came to make this film, your personal connection to Busch, what that's been like.
Sure. I mean, first of all, I just need to thank Karen for letting us into her life. It was a very difficult time for you, and to let us shove our cameras and our lights in your face was brave, and we'll always appreciate that. For me, my connection with Bush started in 2010 when I was part of the Asian Pacific Islander Community Leadership Foundation. I always have a hard time remembering the acronym. So we would go take these classes in the ID, and then, and you learn from all these great leaders. Uncle Bob taught class, Kip Takuda taught a class, and people would say, we have to go to the bush afterwards. And I grew up in Kirkland and I moved to Seattle about 5 years prior to that, but I didn't really know the bush. So I was just like, okay. So I followed people across the street to the bush, and it was dark and the drinks were stiff and the karaoke singers were amazing. And I just never left. I just became a regular. So, I mean, through my ACLF community and also through my Seattle Asian American Film Festival community, we just started frequenting that space. And that's how my co-directors, Ellison and Chris Win Chen, we all decided when we heard the news, back in 2016, we heard the news that Bush was closing. And we didn't know what was going on. From what we heard, it sounded like it was going to close tomorrow. So we just grabbed our cameras and ran down and started shooting. And it was a crazy journey because it took 4 or 5 years for the story to come to completion. And it's not even to completion yet. So just that up and down, I mean, that was just a fraction of what Karen was feeling as, she was going through it. But yeah, I mean, it's just the place where you spend time with community and your friends. And actually, I realized it wasn't the first time I'd been in there in 2010. I realized when I was an elementary school kid, we actually went on a field trip to Busch Garden. When I saw the tatami rooms, it all came flooding back to me. And I mean, that's why spaces like this are so important, because it's not just the time you spend there at that moment, it's all the times you spent there before. It just has this cumulative effect and just creates a beautiful space and memory.
Right. And now, Cynthia, when we were watching this, you were actually saying that you were emotionally impacted around this film. Maybe you could share that with everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think this film and Busch Garden has been deeply personal for me as well. I think Busch is, as Auntie Karen said, like my second home, my living room. Definitely was my Cheers. It's probably the place that I've spent the most time in the last 15 years. I went there as a kid, to eat with my family, and then transitioned into the bar as soon as I was 21. So personally, it's been really impactful in terms of just friendships and relationships. And then in organizing, I mean, Busch Garden has been a home for Humbows Not Hotels, which is an anti-displacement organizing group that I'm involved in. So, grateful for providing a home for us, and just so many other organizers and activists. I mean, it's just incredible what a intergenerational, multiracial community building space Busch is. So yeah, again, excited for that to continue on in a couple of years, and just gratitude for the community that you've shepherded and built, Auntie Karen.
Right. And what we're gonna do right now is and we're gonna have a roundtable discussion here after our next film, and so that's when Martin and I would say Auntie Karen.
Auntie Karen, yeah.
And that's when. Can I call you Auntie?
Yeah, sure. Of course.
Thank you, Auntie.
Thank you.
So we're going to take a quick break right now. And when we come back, we're actually going to be looking at something from today, which is The Massive Monkeys, in a segment that was co-produced by Converge Media and Vanishing Seattle Films. We're going to take a quick break right now. You are watching Community Voices, the Vanishing Seattle edition.
The Seattle Association of Black Journalists presents the Morning Update Show 1 year anniversary special this Friday, March 19th at 7 p.m. Join the Converge Media family as we broadcast live from the State Hotel in downtown Seattle, and we take a look back at the last 12 months of the Morning Update Show and a glance towards the future. This is a night you won't want to miss and definitely won't forget, as we're also joined by Julia Jesse, Basa Gordon, Marcus Harrison Green, Jake Gravgrot, Be Unique, Dre's, Eric Calligraphy, Bobby Stills, Mike Davis, Carlos Imani, Willard Jimerson, G. Prez Aspie, DJ Topspin, and more. Woo! So save the date this Friday, March 19th at 7 p.m. across all Converge Media platforms.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right, welcome back to Community Voices. I mean, this mic right here. You know, it's always wild. It sounds live TV, man. Community Voices, the Vanishing Seattle edition. My name is Omari Salisbury. Also want to remind you, good time right now. We see a lot of great stuff in the comments. It's a great opportunity for you to tag and share the stream. This is a very special program we put together here. I want to share it with as many people as possible. Also, I got to say that my mama was in the comments talking about, she used to go to Busch Gardens all the time and talk about the hot mustard. All right, mama, I see you. Cynthia, we've got our next film coming up. It's about the massive monkeys, and maybe you can set it up for us.
Yeah, so this is a segment that we produced together, which was, really amazing and super fun. And it's about the Beacon, which is Massive Monkeys' studio, their dance studio. But as you'll see, it's also so much more than that.
My name is Bryson Angeles. I go by B-Boy Just B, and I'm from the Massive Monkeys crew. Massive Monkeys crew was started in 1999. Really at the core of everything that we are, we're just a group of friends. All into hip hop, all into art, all into dance, got together, stuck with it, and we're able to do a lot of good things through breaking and hip hop and friendship. We won multiple world championships, one in 2013 in Korea, and one in 2004 in London. As performers, we performed on some pretty big stages, NBA All-Star Game, on tour with Macklemore, Ryan Lewis, performed at the Video Music Awards, European Music Awards. I guess you could break up our accolades into a couple of things. We've done a lot of great things in community. Number one, educating and teaching people about the culture and what we do. Maybe the most important thing we do. We get the audience by winning world championships, getting to these huge stages. And then the other part at the heart of what we do is like battling, competition. It's competition. It's what drives us to be better, to show better. And there's a couple of people in the crew who are super, super competitive, and they kind of drive everybody else to be as competitive as them, which is a blessing. It's a good thing. 2013, we opened the Beacon for Massive Monkeys to operate a lot of the classes, workshops, do a lot of the programming that we were doing with other organizations. It actually became something much bigger than that, that was more about the entire local community of dancers. There's a lot of people who were really great at what they do, but didn't have like a huge spotlight on them or places where people could recognize or see them, or people were just bubbling on their potential, like, I just need a place to like test these things or try these things that I want to teach, or I want to learn more about these things. And what the Beacon became was like a place where like all of this collected, gathered energy that we had done since '99, we're like able to like hone it in on one place to bring some attention here, and then all the people around and all the people who played a part in us growing and developing, old school, new school, people who are coming after us, all like converged in this place. So it was like, it wasn't the plan. It wasn't the plan for what this was gonna be, but that was probably the most beautiful thing, how it connected a lot of people, re-engaged a lot of people, and then launched new people, where I'm watching some of the younger cats like, they're amazing in Seattle. They're amazing in Seattle. And all the people who are coming into the space built the space. I'm happy to be in here. I'm happy to see what it is. I'm happy to reflect on it and see that how much great things happen here. But even on the way moving out, it was like, it's all good. Like, this is just the timing of it. This is a pandemic. This is the timing. Like, for us, it was like, we had spent 8 years in here. We're not even able to hold classes right now. You know what I mean? Like, and 6 feet apart, you imagine how many people you have to stack in here to make rent. We can get all these people seeing us and ready to do it, but if we can't come in the space, then what are we doing it for? So it's tough to leave this space, but we very much made a conscious decision that it was the right thing to do at the time. Honestly, being in the space now is like, don't let it fool you. Running the business was tough. Like, running a business was tough. I got into it as an artist, like all these ideas, all these visions, some idea of how to execute on it, but I'm an artist, and I wanted to open a dance studio because I'm a dancer, and this is the community. But I think that the city did well in helping recognize us on our way up after winning world championships, giving us recognition for Massive Monkeys Day, Mayor's Arts Award. These type of things were great for us because it almost gave the trust of some of the community who may not know who we are. I think if the city continues to do that around arts and around artists and around things that aren't so accepted, then maybe we can help other people like us at a younger age do it. I think that we did great as business owners. Me and my partner Jasmine, we figured things out when it needed to. For like 2 or 3 years during us being in the space, I was touring with Macklemore, and so with the leadership of certain crew members and Jasmine being a big part of it, who was running a lot of the business kind of quietly, and she's doing a lot of the tough work, like a lot of the administration and operations, and so when I took off, she continued to do that. But the artists and the dancers and the teachers and a lot of people like, yo, how can I help? When you're gone, how can I help? How can I do this? And I'm like, yo, this is crazy. And so it was dope, but truthfully, that kind of shit was going on in here the whole time. There's like classrooms full of kids. You know what I mean? Like classrooms full of young kids, old kids, adults who are just stepping into what breaking is, or these hip hop dance styles, or these funk dance styles, or these dance styles that are like all about community. You know what I mean? They're all about how can we come together in a room, dance, vibe out, share energy. So many people are coming into the studio all the time getting introduced to what this is, you know what I mean? Because our audience was so diverse, or the people coming in to do classes, then there's parents and people who wouldn't know about the space otherwise. They're like, yo, but there's this dope, wide open dance studio that's in Chinatown, so anything from a kid's birthday party to a wedding reception to community activists coming together to strategize. There were so many things happening in here. One, by location, I think two, by how welcoming and opening we are and accepting of whatever, whoever, whatever it is. Like, if it's tight and it's positive, let's do something together, yeah. I think a big thing the public can do is support the dancers and the teachers who are working here. As the business owner, my first thing was when we shut down is like, how can I help support them? But because we're shutting down and we're paying our exit fee on lease, like I don't have a huge amount of finances that we could get to them. So any way that you can support the teachers and the people who are working at the Beacon, motivated to continue doing what they're doing, then when we're ready to open a space, then as long as they're thriving and they're good, then we'll have a place to come back to together. Yep. Thanks for having me. Have a good day. Good?
All right, so first of all, I gotta give a big shout out to Massive Monkeys, and I'm mad I wasn't able to make that shoot, because like if you're a Seattle person, and I think that you heard in the film where he's like, yo, it's Massive Monkeys Day, this and that, these guys all over the world, like you got a sense of pride, like it's the Massive Monkeys, and this was really dope. Also, gotta give, where's our wide camera over here? I gotta give a big shout out to Jake Gravbrot, who shot this particular film, and then also the next one that we're going to see in the next hour, the produced piece from Scarecrow, and the Converge crew. We kind of got it together.
Yeah, you've got a really tight team.
All right, so we're getting ready to bring in Tracy Wong. Long history there with the Massive Monkeys. Go ahead, Carlos, Mr. Director. Hey.
Hi.
Hey,
What's
Tracy.
up? Hi.
Good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I also want to thank you so Tracy shared some of that additional footage of the Massive Monkeys and the dancers in the space, which I think really, brought the film to the next level. So thank you for that.
Yes. Definitely for the film as well and the editing.
Yeah, good stuff. So you're a dance artist. You're also the director of Malicious Vixens. You're a community event organizer. Could you tell us a little bit more about, your involvement with the Beacon studio space?
Yeah, first off, like that video was really heartwarming to watch. So Bryson and Jasmine, if you're watching this, shout out to y'all, and I'm sending y'all so much love. And anyone from the Beacon community, sending y'all so much love. I might get emotional, but I just miss y'all. And let me take a breath real quick. What was the question? Can you ask that one more time, please?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, please take that breath. It's definitely intense. An intense film. I can see how it brings up emotions, but would just love to hear a bit more about, your involvement with Beacon and the space and the community there.
Yeah, I can talk about that. So I was a instructor there at the Beacon Massive Monkey Studio. I primarily taught whacking, but I also organized a lot of community events there with other community members. And we organized different events such as like Pumpkin Funk and Funky Monkey, open sessions, jams, battles. We had live DJs coming in from all over. We had folks, activists coming in and using it as a community space. They would come in to film video projects. It was pretty much a space where we organized lots of dope things, what Bryson said, and dope and positive things, and brought that all together in that space. I also helped with a little bit of the programming and the background work in helping to keep the Beacon going and managing. So that was my involvement with the Beacon.
Yeah, and when you mentioned, having the space open for different community activists and groups, like one of those groups that the space benefited was the CID Coalition. I remember you opened up the space for us to have a youth orientation, and so I just wanted to thank you for having that the Beacon be welcoming to everyone in the community and serving so many different functions. In addition to dance and being an affordable rehearsal space, and I've taken some wonderful classes there. So yeah, I took a voguing class with Danny Terrell.
Oh my god!
It was pretty terrible, but it was a good time. Yes. My arms were sore the next day for sure. Would love to hear any updates you might want to share just on the Massive Monkey Beacon community of dancers and teachers. Like how are folks doing?
Yeah, I can speak for myself and the community members that I've been in touch with, but from what I've seen, a lot of folks have moved from being in person to a lot of virtual things. I know a lot of DJs have been spinning on Twitch. A lot of community members like Tricom, they've got their Twitch as well. Marika has a Twitch, and it's been a community space for folks to gather. We have with the DJ live streams, I know Catch the Ghost has been happening with CoFlow in the Bay, as well as other DJs spinning. So dancers are still finding a way to still release and dance together. And folks will gather via Zoom. We still do, at least for the Whacking Tuesday community, we do whacking classes on Tuesdays via Zoom. And I know a lot of us are having social distance dance sessions outside, have it be at Jedkins or the CID, but I know folks are still getting down. I think also some folks may not be dancing as much, which is totally okay. I think with the pandemic, it's been a lot of transitioning through jobs, and not everyone has the privilege for full-time work, and showing that capitalism does not work. And so a lot of folks are taking care of themselves, taking care of their families, and a lot of us are grieving and mourning, especially with the anti-Asian hate crimes and the anti-Blackness in the communities and everything that's been happening. I also know that a lot more community members are relaxing more and learning to just slow down and to tell themselves it's okay to not be as productive. And it's actually great to really, really rest and nurture yourself. But yeah, I do know that a lot of community members are doing a lot of inward connection to themselves and inward work in diving deeper into their roots and connecting to their ancestors. And I know for me personally, I'm also just trying to learn about what it means to love myself and boundaries and really be firm with that and divesting from the things that show up as white supremacy, have it be like divesting from productivity, imposter syndrome, and saying fuck that shit, and perfectionism, and all of that.
Yes, thank you for lifting that up and naming all that, Tracy. I know it's, obviously been a very intense, heavy year, but I'm glad to hear that folks are, taking time to take care of themselves and each other, and that there's still opportunities to, connect with the dancers as well for those who are, still doing things online. And yeah, quickly, I would love to hear if there's any updates you might be able to share about, like outlook for a new space. If there's, just any developments on that. If there's a possibility to stay in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I no updates really, but all I know is that when it's time, the beacon will be here, and there's always going to be a beacon for the community.
Amazing. Yeah, that's very, very reassuring to hear that. And thank you so much for joining us. Looking forward to Beacon and its next manifestation. And for folks to keep staying in touch with each other in the meantime.
Yeah. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank y'all. Thanks for having me.
I still try to figure that. There we go. I kind of got it right there.
That's good. Actually, that's good. You could do like your fingers too. Bam.
Okay.
Bam. That's it.
Have a good evening. Man, you can hear and feel like the passion that's in there. And one thing, about a crew, they're like Converge, we're a crew. Right? I mean, we're kind of fronting as a media company, but we're really a crew. And when you got a crew like Massive Monkeys, and it's so much emotion and feeling and empathy for each other, and you can just hear that emotion in a voice.
Yeah, and I think every time, like I've, walked into the Beacon, even though like personally I'm not like deeply embedded in the dance community or anything, you still feel that vibe and that, that feeling of family and welcome, every time you go into the space. And that's, something that's carried with the people, of course, and the dancers. So I'm sure that'll carry over into wherever they, find a home next.
Right. Keeping it in the CID, we have another guest back there in the green room.
Yes. So we're going to be joined by Leslie Morishita, who is the Real Estate Development Director with Interim Community Development Association.
All right. That's your cue, Mr. Director. Hey.
Hello.
Hi, Leslie.
Hi.
Thanks so much for joining.
Welcome. Yeah, happy to.
Leslie, you do, a lot of work with Interim Community Development Association in the International District, which was founded by Uncle Bob Santos. You worked with Uncle Bob, and I think you have like a really great kind of perspective on the community, the neighborhood as a whole, and, how it's, changed over time. So I would, just love to hear a little bit more about, well, maybe we could start with, since you're involved with Uncle Bob's Place, which is going to become the new home of Busch Garden. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit more about Uncle Bob's Place and how that's coming into being.
Okay. Well, Uncle Bob's Place is going to be new construction. We're actually going to start April 5th, if everything comes together. So it's going to be a new building right in the heart of the historic core of the neighborhood, at the site of the old Four Seas Chinese restaurant and Dynasty Room Bar, which is another beloved neighborhood institution like Busch Garden with a really important history. But at that site, the family, they chose to close the restaurant, and they were really looking for some way that they could make their land be of benefit to the community. And so they sought out interim to develop low-income housing. So it's going to be an 8-story building with 126 units of low-income housing that will, I'm sure we'll have the full diversity of people who live in the ID, including elders, and all the way up. We've got 3 bedrooms for families with children. And then the ground floor is going to have 2 retail spaces that face King Street. And they're, one of them is being designed with Busch Garden in mind, happily. And that's going to be adjacent to a corner space that we're calling the Bob Santos Community Room. And that's going to be a gathering place for the community. And the idea there is to carry forward Uncle Bob's legacy in an active way, more than just naming the building after him. But, he was really all about community organizing and advocacy for the protection and preservation of the community long term. And so that's going to be a space for organizing, education, partying, and it's going to open onto the Busch Garden. So we're anticipating a really wonderful kind of synergy between those 2 spaces.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I know a lot of people are, kind of down the days. I know construction timeline, takes a bit, but, looking forward to when, folks can gather and sing again. And in terms of, looking at the International District from like on a holistic level and like some of the kind of pressures that we've seen over the past, few years, the kind that have led to, Busch Garden, being displaced from its original home. Maybe you could just offer some reflections about like what you're seeing in terms of like some of the pressures on the International District.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's always been different pressures on the International District that threatened to displace what's there. And in the recent years, what we're seeing is an unprecedented development pressures from market rate developers coming in and like swooping in and buying up properties and wanting to develop tall luxury market rate and luxury buildings that are pushing people out, both physically, literally. If a building that houses people is people are evicted and then the building is torn down, but then also economically because the property values are skyrocketing and rents are going up and people can no longer afford to stay there. And then also culturally, because with the influx of new people, especially people with more money, the businesses will cater to the people with more money, and the smaller mom and pop businesses that are traditional to the neighborhood are being pushed out. And this has been, there's been some really what we consider, unjust, huge upzones in the neighborhood in the past. So it's these big upzones that allow much bigger buildings there, together with the economic dynamics, with the growth in the city and the tech industry and people with more money coming in. So it's really unprecedented what we're seeing now. With the COVID, it's kind of slowed things down a little bit, but I anticipate that it's going to pick right up when COVID ends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a term that I've heard a lot is disaster gentrification. And that, this natural disasters, COVID, things of the sort are just kind of paving the way for more predatory development gentrification. So, I'm glad that there's folks like you and organizations like Interim, which are, trying to hold ground for folks who are working class and our elders and artists and lower income folks. So I'd also like to ask you, what do you think is needed in terms of reform, in terms of change to help keep the community intact in the ID, to make development more equitable and to avoid displacing places like Busch Garden and other, valued community assets?
We need to approach this on every front we can think of. And so, one of the things, I'm a developer. So what I think of as community control of land as being key to addressing displacement and keeping a community in place so the people who are there can continue to be there and to thrive and to be themselves. And it's basically, get the land out of the speculative market and do good stuff with it. Do stuff that's wanted and needed in the community, that's culturally appropriate, and we see a piece of land as a stake in the ground for the long-term sustenance of the community, and we take every opportunity to serve the community with that land. Now, of what needs to change, like I said, the zoning, there've been big upzones, and the economic environment is just something that was not anticipated 50 years ago when Interim was first forming, and when the International Special Review District, which is the design review that every project that's built there has to go get approval from this body. That's the International Special Review District Board. And Interim was very instrumental in putting this in place almost 50 years ago, with the idea that, okay, now, we did it. I wasn't here, but people before me, we did it. We got this in place, so now the community has a say in what gets built, and the community will be protected from insensitive development and from displacement. And what we've seen is conditions have changed so much that it's time to reform, revisit, revise that International Special Review District process. Refocus it back on people rather than just on buildings, to build in, it's governed by the land use code. This gets a little wonky, but it's, we need to build in equitable development principles into that language, and really bring people into focus, and focus on center those most impacted by displacement. And so that's something that we're building a coalition now that is really focused on making these changes. And, we're hoping that this will be a model for other neighborhoods, other communities to follow, because the International Special Review District, we're lucky that we're fortunate that, the activists of the early days had the kind of vision they did, and we have this as a handle to grab onto right now to help stop the kind of development that's not wanted in the community and that's pushing people out. So that's one thing.
That's it. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Leslie, for your insight, and of course for all of your work, and continuing that long.
We're going to talk to Leslie again at the bottom of the next hour, right?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Leslie's going to come back at the end.
We'll catch you
another
in a bit then.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
See you soon. Thank you.
All right. Well, it's crazy because it's so much. We're neighbors. People probably know Converge, that we're very much neighbors from the Central District, International District. At one point, even part of Central District, which is now International District. A lot of people right there on 12th. A lot of they said back in the days, jazz clubs, speakeasies, and things like that. We're neighbors, and you hear a lot of the same kind of pressures that they're talking about in the International District. Is a lot of some of the things people in the Central District have been talking about for a long time as well. And what's really good to see is there's actually a good relationship between these organizations in the Central District and the organizations in Chinatown-International District. They can kind of join hands, and a lot of times to be able to block some of these predatory projects that are out there.
Yeah, I think it's really powerful and beautiful, and we do see these examples of cross-community solidarity, because a lot of folks did grow up and live and work together in these same neighborhoods, in these formerly redline communities. So
and even just in I wouldn't say modern times, but there's always been there's been a tight, just by the nature of Seattle, and going to Garfield High School, and I think it's similar in a lot of high schools here, that there's all it's just our culture. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. When you think it's like the massive monkeys, when we talked about earlier, and everything else, there's always been a synergy, and not so much a segregation in between when you talk about like the International District, the Central District, things like that. Man.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I mean, it's
Yeah.
part of the Seattle, unique and rich Seattle culture.
I shared a story earlier. Who was I on with? I think it was Cube 93 earlier. They were talking about the anniversary, and we were talking about clearly what's in the headlines here, especially the last few days, hate crimes against Asian Americans and things like that. And we talked about Converge, and we're like, Converge is at it. Of course, people know where I'm at. I'm against all of that. But I shared a story that the second day that we were out there, this was back during the Western Barricade of the protest, the second or the third day, and we were running out. We were running out of the phone was just out of juice. We were totally unprepared. Didn't know we were going to get tear gas. Didn't know we were going to get this and that. And I'm on the stream and I'm like, yeah, I've got like 7%. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Whenever I can charge my phone, I'll get back to you. And guys left Fobach and came up there to where we were at on Broadway with a bunch of battery packs. They were watching like over there like at Fobach, and they left and they brought us the battery packs up there and kept streaming for the rest of the night. So I always talk about this relationship, you know what I'm saying? They're still there. Don't let anybody tell you it's not. We're sliding right into our second hour, just like that. And before we get into the film here about the University District, give us some overview on your experience of vanishing Seattle, so to speak, through the University District. What have you seen transpiring there over the last few years?
Yeah, well, I think the University District is in a real interesting place. There's been, Leslie was just talking about upzones, and there's been at least a couple upzones that are pretty dramatic in the neighborhood. So I think we're, seeing that play out as we speak. And in the case of Hardwick's Hardware, which is the film that you're about to see, they were basically pushed out because of an upzone that resulted in property taxes that were, that they couldn't afford them. And, that place had been there since 1932. So this film was an opportunity for me just to learn more about like the rich history of that, not only that, of Hardwick's Hardware, but like the ripple effects it has on multiple industries and like artisans in the Seattle community.
All right. So with that being said, this is a Vanishing Seattle film right here, Hardwick's Hardware.
You're fine. I'm good at moving through skinny areas. Hello? Well, I saw two inexpensive routers. I saw a used Bosch plunge router for $49.95, and then I seen a new Skill number 1810 that's going for $79.99. Okay, all right, thank you. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
I own a portion of Hardwick's, which is also known as Hardwick & Sons, Inc., and it's also known as Hardwick Swap Shop, and also Hardwick's Hardware by the people out there in Seattle. The store is 10,000 square feet, and it's separated into 3 rooms. 2 rooms are 4,000 each. Of course, the tool room existed before my father bought it in 1938, or started here in 1938.
Well, Hardwick's, amongst all of the woodworkers on the lake, Hardwick's is Mecca. Okay, I mean, that's, when I was younger, I'd save my money up, knowing that I was going to spend all of it at Hardwick's. And going to Hardwick's was like, going to heaven. Jensen's has been going to Hardwick since Hardwick's was founded, and that's where we get everything. I was stoked that they're going to still be online, because I was, what are we going to do? Especially what are the younger guys going to do? Because, I'll be retired here in another 6 years or so, but you can't buy what you can buy at Hardwick's. You can't get anywhere else. So.
My relationship with the Hardwick's goes back a long, long time with Dean and his brothers. My relationship was mainly with Lloyd, who was the store manager. One day he called me up and he said, Ken, we found a bunch of metric nuts and bolts that we didn't even know we had. And he goes, nobody over here knows anything about metric nuts and bolts, so do you want them? I said, well, how much? And he goes, I don't know, you tell me. So I went over there and he had literally hundreds of boxes. It filled up the whole back of my truck with boxes. And I said, okay, Lloyd, what do you want for it? And he goes, $100. So I gave him $100, and we still have Hardwick boxes on the shelf from that time on, and that was about 15 years ago.
It was pretty clear that disasters came up, and whichever one of us needed help, we seemed to get it. I went down with a 4-way bypass. They protected my income, even though there was no provision to do that.
For the millionth time, someone said, oh, you got to go to Hardwick's. Just even if you don't know what you need, go there and you'll probably find it. And I went, and I literally walked down the ramp and had another one of those stopping experiences because I saw the desk. I had no idea what it was, and I went up to the front desk, and the super nice cat was up there, and I said, there's a desk back there that I really love. He said, what's it look like? I said, it's black, and it's got a bunch of locking hardware on it. And he said, oh, Bill's desk. So, he came back and made sure that there was a sticker on it. I said, okay. Some things are just soulful, and some things are more porous and collect more energy than others. And this is a thing that had clearly been used a lot.
So I have a long relationship with Hardwick's, and it's just one of those places you just stop in regularly just to see what's new, what's old, what has just come, because it's both used and new tools you can just find. You never know what you're going to find there, basically. Every jewelry student in Seattle, Hardwick's is on their supplier list, because you're going to find tools there that are going to be useful to you, whether or not they're jewelry tools. The other thing that's so special about Hardwick's is they just have things that nobody else has. I get lots of ideas just from my environment, and I'll just wander around that hardware store and I'll find something that I don't even know what it is. I feel like that's really what's missing with the digital age is that you don't come across things the same way. You have to go looking for them specifically, and you might come across something, but you're also not going to be experiencing it. So I just think there's a lot of inspiration that is lost, and so what's happening is people are just making other people's stuff. So anyway, yeah, Hardwick's is super valuable.
Well, yes, we have something here that we would like to continue, but I don't think it's going to happen, and there's many forces working against it. Most importantly is my customer base can no longer afford to live in Seattle. They can't afford the rents, their property taxes, and they have to sell or just move out.
The property tax situation is really hurting a lot of people. They rezoned over there in the U district for like 9 stories. Dean has to pay a property tax like he's a 9-story building. And the city fathers have pretty much ruined the ability to do business in Seattle.
It takes all your energy out of you, thinking that you have to do so much sales and then you're handing it over to somebody else. The tax increase, no, I can't afford that. They just want to browse around and walk. It's like being in a forest in a way, because the forest, as I'm lucky to have my home out in Edmonds, it's surrounded by about 20 trees, and what it does, it buffers against the sound of the city, and it's actually quiet. Here, it's the same kind of concept. It's like escape from the city. It's like going into a cathedral and having the Blessed Sacrament there. There's a quiet and a peace. There's a presence there that's just different. And that's what I wanted to create here. I'm thinking of the little people, and I'm one of the little people. I'm not a big shot. In fact, I don't make a lot of money what I do. In fact, sometimes I try to figure out how I can just barely get by. Or for just the sheer existence of the store, or my involvement over the years. I've put a lot of energy into it, and I always wanted to make something special.
Wow, powerful piece right there about Hardwick's Hardware. Well, first of all, I saw my mom in the comments. She's like, man, I love Hardwick's. It's kind of crazy because like old school Seattle people used to really move around Seattle into these different neighborhoods. I think the other thing is when I see this, it kind of impacts me. I remember as a kid going to Welch's Hardware. Black-owned hardware store right there on 23rd and Jackson in the Central District. And we talk about a lot in the Central District. We talked about how years ago, everything that we needed was in our neighborhood. Now there's apartments there. There's a Chase Bank, like a sandwich shop and everything else. But it kind of impacted me. I remember going into Welch's as a kid. You really, like the film said, you lose yourself in there, going down the aisles and looking at everything and finding stuff you never knew you needed.
Yeah, I mean, sounds like that was a magical place, just like Hardwick's. Yeah, getting lost in the aisles, just like this castle of odds and ends, and you go in there and you find stuff you didn't even know you needed. So.
Well, I know you got some panelists right there, huh?
So we've got Derek Johnson and Lisa B. Hammond, who were the filmmakers of the Hardwick's film, and also Dana Casara, who was featured in the film and is a metalsmith and a small business owner, and they're all longtime customers of Hardwick's. So yeah, I'd love to bring them in.
Let's bring all three of them in, Carlos. Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Hi.
Great to see you. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for the opportunity, Omar, to bring Cynthia in and her vision with Vanishing Seattle. It's there's so much more to it than just the stories that are being shown tonight. It's going to be ongoing for a while. So thank you. Thank you, Cynthia.
Yeah. So Lisa and Derek, I would love to hear from you if you could share a bit more just about like your personal relationship to Hardwick's and why you wanted to, tell this story and make this film.
I'll speak to that. I'm not a native of Seattle. I mean, if it's all right, Derek, I'll start. How about that? I'll just start. And when I came up on a road trip with a friend and moved here almost 30 years ago, and there were a few iconic places that my friend that brought me up for a visit, just a road trip, girlfriend road trip, stopped by Felipe's Books, Beatty's Books, Hardwick's Hardware, and it just struck me. And when I moved here for work in the 90s, I lived on Capitol Hill. And as an artist, as a set decorator, photo stylist, and production designer, I needed inspiration and places to source. And Hardwicks was a place where I would go for inspiration and resources and unusual artifacts and ephemera that made what I was providing my clients unique. And just like what Dean says in the film, it is like walking through a forest, and the solace and the solitude and the quiet would just allow your mind all the chatter would just dissipate, and you could come across things that you don't know you needed that inspired you to create and tell stories with content. And like Katie says in the story, some things have soul. And since Hardwick started as a swap shop during the Depression, actually Dean's father started it. He was trying to dabble in real estate. He was working in real estate, and the Depression hit, and they closed their real estate office or business, but they started Hardwick Swap Shop with their office furniture. And so that's like some of the first. So right, you would walk. I didn't know that. So and they would take things in, and till the day they closed, you could go in there with an old vacuum or an old tool, and they would buy it from you, or swap you out for store credit, or something that you needed. And I would go there. One day I walked by, and I knew they were needing to close. Well, that there was a rumor. And Dean was outside, and I had just come from SIFF and Seattle International Film Festival, and was feeling inspired. And just went, it's on my way home, I just stopped, and Dean was outside, and I stopped by, and I just asked him what's up. And we started talking, and he got really sad. And he's like, we're just going to have to do something about this. We're going to have to move. We are. And we don't want to just sell to anyone. We want to, we want it to be someone that has intent for the property. And his son Paul Hardwick had already begun inventorying, their warehouse of old ephemera and artifact and general inventory, and started to, build the online store that they currently have, hardwicksandsons.com. And they started just considering where they could move to be content. Mm-hmm. Derek, I spoke with Derek, my colleague, Derek Johnson, Kai Films, and he was excited to work with me, and I was excited to work with him. And we went ahead. He introduced us to some wonderful neighbors, and my neighbor, Dana Casera, a talented artisan and educator, and a long time neighbor of Hardwick's. And that's all. I could go on. I'll just
a lot of history there. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Lisa. And Derek, you've been a long time customer of Hardwick's as well, yeah?
Oh, you're muted.
Muted. I'm muted. Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. So I remember, it must have been about 10, 12 years ago. I was, this is kind of a typical Hardwick.
You're muted again.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
10 years ago, I was looking for some special picture hangers because I was hanging an art show. One that I could think of. I happened to drive by Hardwick's, and I had basically just about given hope to find these things. Somebody there, if they had any picture hangers, and he said, "Oh yeah." So he takes me the exact thing I had been searching for. It had like this is insane.
We're gonna pull him out. Let's do this, Derek. We're getting a little bit of breakup on your audio right there. I don't know if you might want to undo the earbuds. So we're gonna take you out here for a second so we can correct your audio. We're gonna put you in the green room and then we'll roll over here with your question.
Okay.
So we're gonna come back to Derek in a second.
Somehow, without the full story, you could still understand what happened to him.
Fill in the blanks, yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely true.
Dana, you've been a customer, I think, a lot longer than I have of Hardwick's, and you're exemplary with the tools that artisans need. I mean, people moved here starting in the 70s. Seattle has always been an artistic hub and a draw for artisans and craftspeople. And one of the other interviewers, Peter Proctor, who's a shipwright and of at Jensen's boats down on the cut. I mean, metal workers, carpenters, musicians, fine woodworkers, welders, jewelers, clocksmiths. Where are you going to go now to find the inspiration and the tools? Where are you going to send your students?
Well, yeah, actually, the thing is I feel really fortunate because I'm pretty established and I already have so much stuff. But I do feel really bad for those that are trying to build up their inventory. And I feel really bad for them. Actually, in the last few years, I didn't really go to Hardwick's that often, but when I first got started, I was there every day. And when I first set up my studio, I was down there getting advice and buying all kinds of used stuff to equip my studio. I have lots of equipment in my studio that still have Hardwick's stickers on them, and anybody who has something from Hardwick's knows exactly what I'm talking about. And every one of those stickers was handwritten.
By Dean.
Yeah. He was still back there writing them, till the very end. And he had all these stickers printed up that for the future. Yeah. So it still was a place that the whole bit that he said about it being like a forest and a sanctuary and everything, that is like absolutely the holy truth. And it wasn't a place that was designed to manipulate you in any way. It was a store that you went into, was organized in a really general way, but otherwise it wasn't organized at all. And so it did make you just, quiet down and really look through every single shelf and every single little nook and cranny if you were just exploring. And so that doesn't exist anymore. And I love Stoneway Hardware, I should say too. It's a great hardware store and they're really great people. And I do go there still, and I do find some inspiration there just from the different kinds of nuts and bolts they have. But honestly, I guess like an antique shop or, some kind of weird thrift store might still have some of that quality that Hardwick's has.
In Centralia,
yeah. Yeah, no, it was really nice to watch this film again, actually, to just really be reminded of how special that place was. And and it was just down the street from my studio. So if people would come from out of town to take a class, I would always send them there. Just like you said that you went there as you make them go to the Troll, right? In Fremont, to go to the Locks. down in Ballard, and you make them go to Hardwicks to make sure that they have that experience of Seattle. So there really is something missing in Seattle. And Seattle, wow, Seattle has, I mean, the U District has changed a lot, and you know that, Cynthia. It's just mind-boggling.
Dana, yeah, absolutely. And as an artist and a small business owner yourself, would love to hear, a little bit about how you've been impacted personally by some of the larger changes in the U District.
Well, I mean, my building has been set for demolition pretty much since the day I moved in. And everything's kind of on hold right now because of COVID, but I actually had I was meant to be out at the end of 2020, December 2020. And so now everything's up in the air again. And my landlords are great. They're just these guys that own the building, the store next door. But I mean, everybody knew that this train was coming in and that the neighborhood was going to become a lot more valuable. And so a lot of people have been holding on to that property just with the intention of, making money off of it. And you can't really blame them for that, in a way. The building that I'm in is really one of the few buildings in Seattle that I would say probably should get torn down. But it's the oldest building on the block. My building was like built in 1896 or something like that. I mean, it's really old. And it's interesting because I have been, of course, looking around for other spaces. And my studio is a teaching facility, and it had a gallery, which is now closed because of COVID. It's all online, but we still use the physical space, and replacing that is going to be so difficult in Seattle, actually. So I am one of those businesses that is likely to be displaced, and I'm not, I really haven't faced the reality of that because I'm not really sure what that reality is, to be honest. But I keep my eyes open all the time, and people are always telling me, oh, there's that place for rent down there. You should go check it out. So I've kind of had this idea that I would separate the gallery from the workspace, because the gallery really kind of needs the presence of people, whereas the working studio doesn't really need that so much. So I might separate them. That's one of my thoughts. But I mean, one of the things that I've grown to love about my building is it's all wood. And I think that that's one of the things that's really kind of hard to find. And I realize that I really value that as an artist, actually.
Yeah.
That's it, right, Dana? The floors of your building are
the whole building is
200,
just solid wood. Yeah.
But the floorboards are hundreds of it's made of hundreds, 1,000-year-old fur.
It's
right?
True. Yeah, it's true.
The fur, that was cut to make that 200 years ago was already 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1,000 years old when it got cut to make the floors for that building.
Increasing rarity in the city, it seems. Yeah. How are we doing on Derek?
We're getting Derek. We're gonna have him circle around here and join us in the last segment.
Okay, great. That sounds good.
I want to say when we interviewed Peter, we found another Vanishing Seattle, and Peter worked at Jensen Boatworks, and the week before we interviewed him as a shipwright and tradesperson, the owners of Jensen sold their property, which was over 100 years, and we did another short with that, and the tools, and they'd been the tradespeople that had been, the import of that building on the cut and the ingenuity of it is completely unique, and it opened up over the cut so that the shipwrights could build, could plane 40-foot long boards and to make their boats, because this is a boat builder's heaven. It was, but the people that the people that live here now don't realize the beauty of it.
Well, actually, I mean, one of the things I think that's really important to say is that we talk about like displaced communities and how, you know, these people aren't going to have access to what they've had their whole lives. But the other thing is that all these people who are moving to Seattle are just missing out. And like Seattle is just being, it's everybody's going to miss out on Seattle losing all of these historical all this historical reference, all this memory, all the quintessentially different. What is it that I'm trying to say? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
I'm just trying to.
Yeah,
I mean, I just feel like it
really
doesn't
good
matter
point.
who you are in Seattle, whether you're a boat builder or you're a karaoke person or a dancer or an artist. I mean, what makes a city unique and have a special flavor, and I think everybody will miss it. Everybody will miss it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel worse. I feel so bad for the people who don't even know what they're missing.
Yeah. That's powerful. Derek, welcome back. I wanted to, make sure that you had a chance to continue to finish your story.
Yeah, I want to hear the rest of the story.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. I had internet meltdown here. Anyhow, what I was talking about before was I was getting ready to hang an art show, and I was looking for these very specific hooks, and I searched high and low. I just about given up, and I was driving by Hardwicks, and I saw, well, maybe I'll just go and try one more spot. I went in there, talked to the guy, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we have those." And he took me to the section. He showed me there was like every. He had like 10 different styles of the exact thing I was looking for. So it was very, very cool. And that was just one instance of what kind of a resource that was for craftsmen and artists and builders, anybody that works with their hands, built any kind of anything. And, you could go in there and you could buy, sometimes you could find a used version of what you were looking for. And other times you would be able to find, like some obscure specialized Japanese version of that drill or something that you needed, that you didn't even know that you needed. But I guess the other thing I was going to say is that when I started working on the film, Lisa and I had so many meetings, and we just had spent so much time in the environment there in the U District. And the story of Hardwicks really is the story of the culture of Seattle. And when they were going to be just going away, I mean, we lost such a huge chunk of culture. And everyone I knew, when we were putting the storyline together, I said, Lisa, Hardwick's story really is the story of their customers. And so we started to go out into all these different places. And I know, Dana, you're going to be displaced. I don't know if you have moved yet or not, but let's see, there was Ken from Stoneway. While we were filming, Ken, afterwards, he was like, they just sold the block. We have to move. Yeah. And you were talking about the boat company. And I was like, oh my God, Jensen, we went in there to film, and I was like, this place is incredible. It's like a museum of tools. And they are so connected to Hardwicks. And it just was like, it just spiraled, So a lot of the, the rooted support for things in the U District now, it's pretty much gone. So
they built and Jensen's. When Seattle, when that family won the hydroplane races in 1955, and the hydroplane races came to Seattle to Lake Washington, which is now known as Seafair. They built those boats that won that, the slow motion 1 and slow motion 2 in Jensen's Boat Works. And they probably built them with planers and contact cement and hand drills that they bought at Hardwick's. I mean, it was a neighbor, and it's just, you know, when we grew up, I mean, every neighborhood had their hardware store that was family owned, like Welch's, right? Or R&R Johnson up in Maple Leaf or
I mean,
or
I used to go in and talk to Dean all the time, actually. And I tried to convince him that why doesn't he like team up and they could build a really cool building and they could have people live in it and they could have a hardware store in the building instead of a restaurant or a nail salon. I mean, why not a hardware store? So I don't understand. Doesn't everybody need a hardware store? Don't you want to go downstairs? Anymore. But don't you want to go downstairs and buy a hammer?
No, people don't.
I would still appreciate a hardware store. Yeah. Unfortunately, I have to bring this discussion here to it. I got a feeling getting all you guys here together. This want to go all night. Want to say thank you for sharing with us. We have another segment here about the University District, about a business that hasn't vanished, Scarecrow Video. And so we're going to take a short break right now. And when we come back, we're going to be checking out the video from Scarecrow Video.
And we love Scarecrow also.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we do.
You're watching Community Voices, the Vanishing Seattle edition.
The Seattle Association of Black Journalists presents the Morning Update Show 1-year anniversary special this Friday, March 19th at 7 p.m. Join the Converge Media family as we broadcast live from the State Hotel in downtown Seattle, and we take a look back at the last 12 months of the Morning Update Show and a glance towards the future. This is a night you won't want to miss and definitely won't forget, as we're also joined by Julia Jesse, Besa Gordon, Marcus Harrison Green, Jake Gravgrot, Be Unique, Dre's, Eric Calligraphy, Bobby Stills, Mike Davis, Carlos Imani, Willard Jimerson, G. Prez Aspie, DJ Topspin, and more. Woo! So save the date this Friday, March 19th at 7 p.m. across all Converge Media platforms.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right, welcome back to Community Voices, the Vanishing Seattle edition. We're in the University District hour here, and man, lots of comment. You know, this is the thing is I love, well, one, I love this show we're working on, but man, I love when like Seattle people get together and talk Seattle stuff. And you know, it's getting harder and harder to just bump into like Seattle people. You talk Seattle stuff, and it's like, yo, I used to do this or that, or this neighborhood, or this tradition, or this ritual, or this culture. So it's like, yo, this is live. We need to do that. Vanishing Seattle, you know, extended edition. Yeah.
Director's cut. Yeah.
Where it's like, stay tuned, and we're gonna continue discussion.
More stories.
Speaking of that, though, keeping it in the University District, and this was actually one of the produced segments, the partnership here between Converge Media and Vanishing Seattle. Where I was there was at Scarecrow Video, and I think like most people who've ever been in there, I was like, what is this? I mean, like, you know, average person, you get in the time machine, I guess these days, you remember like a Blockbuster Video and Hollywood Video. That's the context that you have of like going to video stores, you move around, here's action adventure, here's drama or whatever. I was blown away by Scarecrow.
Yeah, there's just so much there. I mean, kind of maybe like how Hardwick's had everything, like
Right.
like Scarecrow has like all these genres that you know never even heard about. So I was really excited to do this one too because it's kind of like a not vanishing, like still here side of Seattle, which I think is also important to share.
Enthusiasm. There's a lot of enthusiasm here. We're going to check out this short right here. This is Scarecrow Video.
The Scarecrow Video was started by a man named George Latsios in 1988. He had a movie collection and he wanted to rent movies to his friends, so he lent his movies to his friends. And eventually his collection got bigger and bigger and he actually moved into a little storefront. In 2014, the owners that took it over from George decided they wanted out, and we started a Kickstarter to basically subsume the collection, become a nonprofit, and keep it open and accessible to the public. When I first started working here, I thought that I had seen a lot of movies. It was just wrong. And they're all here. There's never been anything that I couldn't get a hold of or couldn't put into my diet, and it's expanded my view of the entire world and the people in it.
We're one of the largest collections of videos in the world. Eventually, Seattle, not LA, not New York, Seattle is going to be the only place that has a massive collection like this that the public can access. Our algorithm is everything. If you took online streaming of Netflix, Amazon, and Hulu and you put them together, it's about 36,000 titles. So we have over 100,000 more titles than what you can get online. We represent 129 countries, 126 languages other than English. One of the things that's flawed with streaming is the lack of diversity that we see. We want all of those cinematic stories to be available to the community.
A lot of the rarest stuff, or let's say the least accessible or the least well-known stuff, was likely to just disappear into the hands of collectors and never see it again.
Our goal as a nonprofit, because we understand the cultural value of every single item that's in here, is not just to preserve it and make it accessible today, but for 50 years down the road, 100 years down the road, we still want this collection to be representative of our cultural heritage. We have a screening room here, and we would have free screenings almost every night, and as well as lectures, classes, children's hour, our outdoor movies. Anything that was going on in the screening room was free and open to the public. We also have a Silver Screeners program, which was us going out and bringing movies and film discussions to senior community centers.
There was that article several years ago that called this corner the best corner for film in America.
Yeah.
You had the Neptune, which when it was still a movie theater, the Gables, Cinema Books was in the same building as the Gables, and the Guild 45th in Wallingford.
Scarecrow,
and the Grand Illusion.
Mm-hmm.
And only two of those things are around anymore. There's just us and the Grand Illusion. Those things are gone. And that's something that the U District was so vital for. And the Metro's gone too. The Metro, that's an AMC. So that's just a chain theater now. And I think that makes it more important that Scarecrow stay vital and stay alive, because we can still provide some of what all of those things used to do for people in the community and the neighborhood.
We had begun a pilot program back at the end of 2019 of rental by mail. And again, it was just to sort of test the waters, which I guess was prescient in a way, because then lockdown came and we went from having 40 people on our pilot program list to now we have over 500 people signed up for our rental by mail, and we are sending our movies all over the country.
Just like SIF or KEXP, we feel like we're an important cultural asset to Seattle. Scarecrow Video vanishes, so many of these movies are going to vanish, man. It'd be a tragedy. Every one of these things is an art object. Every one of these things is important and tells a story. And there's just no way you can put a price on that. My hope is that we can expand our rent by mail business and take Scarecrow national, so that we are not just keeping this open and accessible to people in Seattle, but to people all over the country and maybe, long shot, all over the world.
The U District is in extreme flux right now. I mean, we're expecting a whole lot more development to happen here in the U District. And I mean, we contemplate this all the time, like what will our role be in the new U District? My hope is that we will continue to be an important place in the United States for people to learn about and make films. You know, here's this incredible resource, which then encourages film appreciation and an interested film-loving community.
All right, well, 140,000 titles, that's just mind-boggling to me. But I'm excited to bring in Kate Barr, who's the executive director of Scarecrow Video.
Hello.
Hi, Kate, how are you doing?
I'm well, how are you? Can you hear me all right?
Yes, yeah,
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. And thank you for the wonderful short film. It's whoever did the music for both of those two short films on the U District. I mean, it's just it just draws you in. It's really wonderful.
Oh, I'm glad to hear you say that. And yeah, I mean, it was a challenge, I think, kind of distilling all the awesome information from the interview, which lasted quite a while, into like a 5-minute segment. So I would love to, maybe bring some of that back into the conversation.
Yeah,
particularly around, I think it was interesting how you talked about, streaming and the kind of limitations of streaming, and then what's offered at Scarecrow. But it's not necessarily an either or, right? Could you say a bit more about your philosophy on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from the point at which, so we became a nonprofit in 2014, and we really took the position that we're not going to go down the road of trying to get everybody to go back in time, and say it's an either or proposition. Either you stream or you like physical media. We're saying there's room for both in this world. There's a time and place for streaming, and there's a time and place for physical media. And our campaign is to say, let's not get rid of the physical media, because there is a place for it. And that's the piece that people seem to lose sight of. One of the things that the online streaming, and like in particular, I would say Netflix does very, very, very well, is they sell the idea, not the actuality, that everything is available online. And it's just not even remotely true, And not only is it not true, but as you begin to realize how narrow the choices are of content that's available online, you then have to ask yourself the question, well, who's deciding what content is available? Who's making that decision? And is that right? Should we have big companies making a decision about what content we actually get to see? So back in the 80s and the 90s, when video stores were first starting to pop up, one of the things that really got people into them was the idea that, prior to that, your ability to watch a movie lay in going to a movie theater, which may be owned by a big chain or a big company, or maybe locally owned, or television. And really, that was it. Those were your choices. And the decision of what content you were going to be able to see in those two venues, theaters, cinemas, or on television, was held by, in general, very large corporations. one of the reasons why I think home video took hold is because all of a sudden it changed that dynamic completely. And the individual got empowered to make decisions about what he or she wanted to watch. It wasn't just at the hands of a corporation to say, no, this is the movie you should see. I got to make the decision of what I wanted to see. And the other thing it did in a way that was unprecedented is it opened up the world to people. I mean, I could live in a tiny little small town in middle America, and I could be watching movies from all over the world. In fact, one of the first movies I saw as a young child, when we got our first VCR, was a movie from Australia. And that was the first time I ever got a glimpse into life in Australia. So, you know, the idea that we are once again kind of coming full circle and putting our viewing choices back in the hands of corporations doesn't make me feel too warm and fuzzy, you know, which is why we need to keep places like Scarecrow Video around, other video stores that are Reckless Video and Maple Leaf. You know, support your local video store if it's still there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like, you know, being able to talk with you and interview you, I just got really inspired because I fall into the trap too, you know, the convenience of, you know, let me just, you know, look at the streaming, let me do Netflix, not leave my house. But, you know, I got really inspired to be like, I need to go in my browse and actually miss that experience. So yeah, can you share with us like how, and the rent by mail program I think is really interesting. I remember when like, that's kind of how Netflix started out, but it's like another venue or another avenue for people to access all the great movies at Scarecrow. So could you just tell us how folks can access that program?
Yes, if you go to our website, there's a whole page that explains the program and then gives you links to get signed up for it. Also on our website, there's information about signing up for an appointment if you want to come in for browsing. And hopefully one day soon, our doors will be open again once we're through the pandemic. And then, of course, we also opened up a pickup window. So you basically can call in and order a movie to rent just like you would a pizza. And we pull it for you, and it's at the pickup window, usually within 5 to 10 minutes, and ready and waiting for you. So, you know, we're trying to figure out ways that we can still get the collection out into the community, but do it in a way in which it's safe for everybody involved. You know, I would say after listening to, you know, watching the video and listening to Dana, Derek, and Lisa talk about Hardwicks, and I've been to Hardwicks and love Hardwicks. I found some of those amazing things there. You know, I guess there are a lot of parallels between Hardwicks and Scarecrow in a lot of ways. A lot of the words that I heard them using are words that have been used for Scarecrow. Things like unique, a sense of discovery, a sense of wonder, you know, and people have often said that. And so it really got me thinking about what is it about progress and development that we have to annihilate these places that do offer us this sense of discovery and exploration. I'm not, this is something that I kind of grapple with on an almost daily basis. But I hope that places like Scarecrow and others that do give people that place to go and discover parts of themselves that they didn't even know exist. We will always need that. We will forever need those places. And I just hope that Seattle doesn't put so much economic pressure on the ones that are here that it becomes a desert land of soulful places to go.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. I feel like you and me both kind of grapple with that larger question, and it makes me feel so, grateful that, you know, you're holding it down at Scarecrow and, you know, having these cultural assets available for the community now and hopefully for generations to come. So just wanted to thank you for that work and thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Always good to hear about what you're doing. And we've got another couple folks to bring forth.
Great.
Mario Molinaro, who's the executive artistic director of Jet City Improv, which is on the north side of the Ave in the U District, as well as Mike Christensen, who is a founding member of Jet City Improv and the current associate artistic director.
Hello.
Good evening. Hey everyone, what's going on? Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Firstly, I just want to give love to both of you. Thank you so much. Thank you for doing this. And wow, this program, I've been processing and grieving and processing and healing at the same time. And so I just want to say thank you for the opportunity,
Yeah, thank you so much for joining. I mean, I really thought it was important to bring you on because, I mean, Jet City is just in the midst of a transition right now and such an important part of the U District and the arts community there and in Seattle. So yeah, maybe you can share with folks just a little bit about Jet City and like the history of the building and kind of what you're, going through as we speak.
Sure thing. Well, we got started in '92, and like a lot of improv groups, we bounced around the city, just doing shows at 10, following other acts, following other theater presentations, and we had our eye on what was at the time a closed theater, and we knew it was being renovated. This was about 2002, and we were rehearsing at the University Heights, which is right down the street, right there on the Ave. When we saw that it was suddenly open as a theater, we got really excited, and we actually made a pitch for it. And this was probably right in there around 2002, and the building ended up not being rented to anyone and closed. And the owner got sick, and we went back to we were actually at the Ethnic Cultural Theater for 5 years, and just down the street going, gosh, we'd love to have our own place. That'd be so great. And then it became the Paradox Punk Rock Club, and we thought, well, we missed out. Now we'll never have our own place. Just as luck would have it, one door closes. We got the boot from the Ethnic Cultural Theater. They renovated the place. We ended up at the University Heights, and that's where we were producing Jet City Improv and Twisted Flicks, our movie redubbing show. The manager of the Paradox saw that, sent me an email and said, hey, you guys can do your movie show at the Paradox. We have a screen. We agreed, and for 2 years, Twisted Flicks followed the punk rock show at the Paradox, which was an all-ages teen punk rock club. Well, when the teen dance ordinance was canceled, the city X'd that out. We took over the lease when the Paradox went under, and that was it. The rest was history. Eventually, we had one of the other co-founders, Andrew's brother, bought the building, and we were set. 2004 was our first year in the space.
Awesome. Yeah, I remember the Paradox well. I've been to shows there underage, and it was a really awesome venue. You can definitely feel and smell the history. And I've seen Twisted Flicks as well, which I totally am in love with. Yeah, but yeah, would love to hear kind of the, Jet City is going through a move now, right? Looking for a new location. Maybe you can share a bit more about that and how can the public support? How can the city support?
Yeah, I think I'll take it for a grip. I think, we have been in the process of literally moving our stuff and going into our nomadic period, which is really exciting and also scary. It's like, oh, cool. We don't really have a building, but I think something that's been really said that I think is really true is that community ain't a building, right? Now, sometimes it can be. And I think in our situation, it's a people. It's the folks that really support it. And so we've been searching around the U District because we want to stay there, right? And so we have some offers out. We're negotiating. But I think for the community to kind of reach out and say, hey, check out this place, think about this, that would be a huge help for us. And of course, we're looking at all of Seattle too. So, if the U don't work, then we'll go somewhere else for a grip and then hopefully come back. But I think in this interim time period is to continue to support us and to continue to look for places that are like, hey, I think Jet City could be really solid here. So I don't know, Mike, if you have a follow-up or anything. Yeah. And Cynthia, it's kind of wild. We've rehearsed for years and years and years at the University Heights, the old school right there on the Ave. It's a really awesome space, and they've renovated the auditorium upstairs. And we have an offer from them. We're going to work together with them. That space is going to be available for us in the evenings. So that tiny space, it seats about 70 people. We're going back to our roots, back to a smaller space, back to a space that doesn't belong to us. But we're super excited to find out what comes next, because I think we're going to continue to grow. We were super lucky to have the space that we did have. The Jet City Improv Theater was an amazing 1932 ex-lumberyard warehouse, but it had this beautiful open ceiling, and we literally had thousands of audience members come through there and have an amazing time. Weddings, I married people on that stage. We had people get engaged on that stage, hundreds of first dates. It does my soul good to know how many folks came through there and just had an amazing time. And that's gonna come with us, like Mario said, you're right. I mean, Jet City Improv isn't just the building, although we were super lucky to have it.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Thank you so much. I mean, I am personally sad to see that venue get demolished, but I'm really happy to hear that you're, going to continue on, and good luck in the search for your new permanent home. And folks can connect with you all like virtually on your shows in the meantime, right? So
I hope both of you do some improv too. So if you ever want to come in, come on in.
Take a class.
I think we could, riff off each other.
Let me tell you, I'll let you guys in on a secret. Doing the morning update show every morning is improv.
Yeah. It's an art.
Hey, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Much love.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think we could start a little, a little improv troupe. Why not?
We gotta think about. You know what? What we talk about here, though, is something that's really so important. These places like Seattle. I'm against divisions. I try not to divide people, whatever. But there really is. There's Seattle people, and then there's kind of new people. And we can talk our Seattle stuff all day. We got another guest back here in the green.
Yes, we've got one more very special guest from the U District that I'm excited to bring on, Rick McLaughlin, who is the owner of Big Time Brewery and also the head of the U District Small Business Association.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Rick.
Hey.
How you doing?
Thanks. Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining. Excited to have you. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about the history of Big Time.
Yeah, so Big Time opened up 88. Been open over 32 years now, and I've been there for over about half of that. I've owned it for the last 7, and I fell in love with the place when I was in college working there, and told the owner I was going to buy it from him one day, and he laughed at me. And so I worked 7 days a week and saved all my money and took on some private investors and, bought my favorite brew pub in the city, and it's just trying to follow the American dream, if you will. Long story short, 2019, we won Best Brew Pub in Seattle from Seattle Magazine. So that was an honor. And we just try to make great beer and great food and try to bring the community together, because brew pubs, especially, they have that same feel that you get when you, especially like Big Time, that you feel when you walked into Hardwick's or when you walk into Scarecrow. That feeling of history and that feeling of memories and, just awesome times is something that it's like in the bones, it's in the walls, and it's something that you don't want to lose. And I remember 2 weeks ago, I was working on refinishing a table or something, and it's like, I'm going to go walk over to Hardwick's and grab a tool, and made it about halfway before I remembered, oh man, they're gone, and I was just like I had this empty feeling in my stomach and my soul, and it just kind of broke me, and I was like, I need to email Dean and see how he's doing. But yeah, so Big Time is, just kind of a staple, not just in the U District, but in Seattle as a whole. And it's a very special place, and I feel fortunate to go work there every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as you're, in your role with the U District Small Business Association, you have a lot of like relationships and interactions with the, small business owners on the Ave and in the U District. What have you been seeing recently in terms of like pressures on the neighborhood, impacts of, upzones, things like that?
Yeah, a lot of fear. A lot of small business owners are scared right now because they're just trying to survive. And the biggest problem that we're going to have coming up is not just with residential leases, but with commercial leases. There's the rent moratorium that's happening. But what happens when, that small business was paying, half of what they were paying before because it's all they could afford to their landlord, and those moratoriums get removed, and then that landlord goes up to them, it's like, hey, you didn't pay your full rent for the last year, and you broke your contract when you did that, so we're going to kick you out. And what we need to try to do is unite even more small businesses together and have a stronger voice and try to combat some landlords that could potentially be threatening towards these small businesses. And media attention is great. Anytime you get stories about it, that helps a lot, and it brings attention, and then it brings support to those small businesses. And really, going forward, it's going to be a scary year for a lot of them. And we need to try to have as much help and support from the city, as possible, which is kind of funny, because it's the city. And, we also need to keep an eye on the city trying to pass more upzones always. They've passed 2 major ones in the last 5 years. And now look, we have a pandemic, and big business is kind of like, ooh, do I really need that 40-story tower downtown? Or do we just have the workers go remote? And, the problem is when you upzone those properties, like poor Dean, their property taxes skyrocket, whether the need for development is there or not. He got priced out, it's gentrification through zoning. And we're seeing that all throughout the city. And, we need to try to build up, a legendary or iconic business strategy with the city to try to start some preservation for these places like Scarecrow Video, that make our city so great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's already, just in the past few months, there's been a couple great small businesses I can think of around the Ave, on the Ave, that have closed. Futran, Sure Shot, Espresso, has been impacted. I think it's, you already kind of touched upon some of the systemic things that you think needs to happen or not happen in order to keep, businesses in place. And I was wondering what you would kind of say to, residents of Seattle that want to make sure that their, favorite small businesses, that, these communities are supported.
Yeah, shop local. Don't go on Amazon.com. Go directly to these small businesses. And if you don't feel comfortable leaving your house still and you haven't gotten a vaccine, give them a call and just say, hey, can I purchase this and can you send it to my house, or could I have it delivered? What's the resources you have available to you? And really just, where your dollars are spent is everything for small businesses right now. We're running a successful business, and this last year, just about wiped us out, and it's tough out there. And a lot of places just, not just need your financial support, but moral support. Send them an email or a message. Just say, hey, I was there 15 years ago, and I had my, after wedding party there, or, I had my birthday party, whatever it is. Those stories, to, people like me and those other small business owners out there, it means the world. And, that really helps keep us, motivated. And, just, oh gosh, it's so exciting to hear people that not just appreciate, what, is within those walls, the people and everything that, you kind of try to unite and, really have that feel of community. And I don't know, it's tough right now, but at the same time, it's exciting because hopefully the pandemic is on the back end. I just got my first vaccine today. So that was awesome, because we're in manufacturing and production of beer. And I hope that this trend of seeing that small businesses are unsafe from our local government or federal government, but going into a Costco is safe. I hope that kind of mentality starts to go away and we start to put small businesses first before those giant corporate chains.
Hey, Rick, but before we let you go here, want to let you know, let me talk directly into the camera here, Mr. Grabrot. I want to let you know that here at Converge Media, we're big fans of beer. And that being said, I would really like the opportunity to bring Jake Grabrot and Eric Calligraphy and the rest of our motley crew over there to your establishment, and maybe we could actually shoot some video and share with the rest of the city what you have going on out there.
Well, that would be an honor. That would be a dream, and I would love to have a pint with you and talk old Seattle and share some stories. And yeah, that sounds awesome. Anytime.
All right, we're going to follow up with you on that. Rick, thanks so much for taking the time. I appreciate it, and we're going to be in touch soon.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
I like beer too, Omari.
Bro,
can I come?
Well, of course.
I'm going to invite myself.
You're already. Well, I saw Jake back there where he was like, man, and then the eyes got big. He was like, yeah, manufacturing and crafting.
Yeah, one of the oldest brew pubs in Seattle. I didn't even know that recently.
We got to go there. And I mean, one of the best things that we like doing here at Converge, to be honest with you, is just continue to tell these stories. And sometimes it's in the studio and under the lights, and a lot of times, there's so many small business stories when we go back through the archive where Converge, we couldn't afford no cameras. But we knew stories needed to be told, and so we just had our iPhone. So it was the Camera Phone Collective. So I have all of these videos from back in the day. I mean, actually, the very first videos from the Postman that I actually went and covered them, and the Postman, they'll be in our edition next week, just on the iPhone. So
nice.
Whether it's the iPhone or we bring in the big cameras, man, we like
Make
to
it happen.
spotlight these businesses here across the Seattle. We got a few people that hung in overtime, and so they're here overtime. You still with us, Jake? You're not. We're okay with overtime.
I'm still here.
Okay, Grandpa is still here, and so who's joining us for the crosstalk?
Well, we would love to welcome back Kate Barr from Scarecrow, and Auntie Karen from Busch Garden, and Leslie Morishita from Interim.
All right.
Yep. Thanks for hanging in there.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for hanging in there. You're going the distance.
Yes, really. Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess we just wanted to have a few minutes to have an opportunity to come back together and, share some reflections, have a conversation across neighborhoods, just watching each other's experiences. And I guess I don't have any you have
to pick a neighborhood to start here with.
The International District, the U District. I'm just curious if there's reflections.
I'm going to get one here, Kate, because Kate, you had mentioned watching the other films here and some everything else. What came to mind? Don't worry, we're used to that. Carlos might even pop out here with his baby. Don't worry. What are some of the similarities? I think maybe this is a question that I could pose to all three panelists here, and we can start with Kate. What are some of the similarities of the stories that you see? Clearly different neighborhoods, different stories, different timelines, but what are some of the things that you see similar as far as cultures and traditions and as far as the pressures that these neighborhoods are facing?
Well, and I think I was sort of touched base about that when I was making the parallel between Scarecrow and Hardwicks. But I think the commonality is that we're talking about a lot of places that are unique to Seattle, that are inspirational to people, and that are those places that allow us to have a sense of wonder and that make Seattle so special. And, going back to a comment that I believe it was Lisa that made about people coming to Seattle now that aren't going to get to go to Hardwicks, that aren't going to go to some of these places that have disappeared. It just makes me wonder what will this new Seattle be? What will be those places that we're now losing? What are going to take their place? I mean, obviously, we're hoping Scarecrow stays around and continues to be one of the touchstones for our past, our present, and into the future. But what are those other places going to be?
Right. Who else we got over here? Leslie, your thoughts when you were watching over the University District? What are some of the parallels that you saw?
A couple things. I mean, like, firstly, it was really poignant and moving to see how it's just powerful to see these beloved places that mean so much, that make our communities real communities. And I think that's a commonality across our neighborhoods and with these very special places. But then also the threats, you know, they're the same. It's all about money and greed and you know, policies that are people who are in the communities not having control over what happens in their own community, and the up zones, you know, and the development pressures. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Auntie?
Yes, I totally agree with that. It is the same kind of pressures that are going on in our neighborhood. And I think we really need to figure out how, you know, kind of, mixed income, we can all stay in the same neighborhoods that we work in. Then we can create community. I feel like right now we just have this kind of transient community that comes and goes, who can afford to live in these places. But this whole sense of having a community and having something special that makes Seattle unique. I'm sad to see those places leaving, whether it's in Ballard, Central Area, University District, Chinatown-International District. All of those places have their own special quality that I think I'm proud as a Seattleite, you know, longtime Seattleite, born and raised, that's what makes Seattle special. So I don't want to lose those things. And I think we have to find a way to preserve neighborhoods so that we can really hold communities, and it doesn't matter what your income is, there's a place for you to live and be in that space. And I feel like a lot of connection, a lot of commonality about what we're experiencing, and I think we need to find a way to keep it, because, you know, if we lose these places, other places in the world have, you know, they have the Colosseum or they have old temples or whatever. We're not going to have anything left if, you know, to tell our story. And I think, you know, we have a short history in Seattle, but we still have a story to tell. And I think Seattle has a lot of unique stories, and we've learned to live together side by side and connect with each other in ways that I think are very special. So that's what I think we have to figure out how to do across all our neighborhoods and all our communities.
Yeah, you know, when the U District was slated for the up zone, I was having a lot of meetings with council members at the time, and one of the comments that I kept getting was, changes is happening. It's not a matter of will we change or won't we change. It is happening. It is inevitable. And my response to that was, but why does it have to follow that we cannot find a middle path in which the past and the future can coexist, right? You know, why do we have to annihilate everything that came before and just bulldoze it to make way for some unknown future? You know, couldn't we find a middle ground? And it's why I think, Cynthia, what you guys are doing is so important, because you are the ones that are bringing our stories, shedding some light on these stories, that are bringing this to the public's attention. And that's really what has to happen. If you don't want these things to go away, then you got to advocate for them. You have to support them. You have to be out there saying, this is an important part of the fabric of this city.
Yeah, thank you, Kate. I think that's such an important point about change. And I also, you know, appreciate Auntie Karen and Leslie, like your vision too, for what you would like to see. And I mean, yes, change is a constant. It is inevitable in a lot of ways. But, you know, I think the question that you brought up, Kate, is like change to what end? And so I would love, for each of you to share, like, what is the change that you want to see? Like, what would you say to the city or to the public about, like, yeah, change is happening, but what is the change that you would like to see realized?
Yeah, who's being valued in the community? And we talk about, oh, we need this, we need mass transportation, and we need all this so people can commute and not be in their cars. But why can't people live in the neighborhoods that they work in? They can't afford right now. They can't afford to. So people who work, the essential workers who can't afford and have to travel to their jobs. If we can make sure there's places in every community where people can live and be a part of the community that they work in, I think, those are kind of, goals. It's a different vision than what's happening in Seattle right now. But certainly change can happen, but it shouldn't be change that prioritizes money over people.
Right. There you go. I think you nailed that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, put people first. How about put people first?
Yeah.
I have a question, and we could start with Kate maybe on this one. Is that I really feel, coming from the Central District of Seattle, 29th and Jackson, James A. Garfield High School, Seattle kid through and through, I really feel that when I look at the city and I look at a lot of change, that it was just determined that, like, some neighborhoods are expendable and some neighborhoods are not. And, I mean, it's amazing to hear somebody like Ruby Holland from the Central District who's saying the same thing as the owners there at Harwick's, that, I mean, they're getting taxed out, whether it's homeowners or businesses are being taxed out. And it's crazy that we hear about change and all these other things, but some neighborhoods in Seattle seem to have weathered this change and this preservation so well. And I'm just curious, do you feel that, like, the city leaders have drawn on a map what neighborhoods are expendable? What neighborhoods, let's go ahead and make these ones super dense, but let's let these people keep their houses and everything else?
I mean, I think, and I know in the chat that's been kind of going on, the bottom line is it's all about money, isn't it? I mean, if you have money and you have the power, then you can preserve your house and your neighborhood, and it becomes untouched. But for all of those neighborhoods that don't, when I moved to Seattle in 2009, so I'm a relative newbie to Seattle. But when I moved here, the U District was an affordable place to live. I mean, it actually had affordable rents. And I mean, now I think one of the things I read said that the average residential rent in the U District, you need to be making between $60,000 and $80,000 a year. Who are those people? Like, they're not the people at Scarecrow, that's for sure. There's none of us at Scarecrow. So, it does feel like this is all about money. And that's why I think the point that, why has it been putting money over people? Where are the people in this equation? And that's what I think you guys are really doing, is you are showing the people that are behind, so here's the thing with change. There are always winners and losers in change, right? And right now, from what I can see, the folks that are losing are the artists and people who don't have the deep pockets. Those are the people that are losing. And it's actually the government's job to protect those people and ensure that they continue to have a voice in the city. And so, I mean, you have to ask yourself whether or not there is sort of a civic failure here.
Any other thoughts on that one?
Well, I would say, your question about does the city have a map and decided what neighborhoods get preserved? I mean, like, we're I know for the International District and the Central District, we're living with the legacy of historic restrictive racial covenants and redlining that left these, historically, people of color neighborhoods fragile, not invested in, with fragile infrastructure and lower, worse building conditions and lower income people. And so now, because of their location, right by downtown, right in the center of everything, they're desirable locations for other people with more money. So, so there was a map, literally a map.
Yeah, and if you look at that map of redlining, that historic map, and you kind of compare it to, like, the city itself did a map, did a risk of displacement index to show like what areas are at highest risk of displacement, and they pretty much like are an exact like overlay of each other. It's a CD, it's the ID, it's Beacon Hill, these formerly redline areas or people of color, that was some of the only places they could live and own in, are now the ones that are at the highest, not only risk, but reality of displacement. So like, how do we not do that as a city?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, there's, urban planning and a lot of times those plans are like 20, 30 years out, in terms of who's deciding what's going to go where. I don't know if you've noticed, but I used to drive through the industrial area where all the stadiums were going to be. We already had 2 and they were pushing for the 3rd one, but that whole neighborhood there, how it slowly changed and over 15, 20 years, but it changed so that it's now we have Auto Row, we have BMW, Mercedes, Tesla, they're all lined up there, all in a row to cater to whoever comes to the games on those days. And we have a brand new business park that's going in right around there, and all the home design places that are being lined up on 4th Avenue and 1st Avenue South and stuff. And so I think there is kind of an urban design or comprehensive plan, the 30-year, 20-year, 30-year comprehensive plan that happens, that is driving something that goes beyond whoever the mayor is, or, I'm not sure how it works. You look at Westlake and what happened. It's not exactly like the original. We have the South Lake Union little train, or what? South Lake Union Transit there that goes a mile and a half. A mile and a half, and hardly anybody rides it. Somebody's designing it.
Well, but I think that, though, you think about some of those neighborhoods, and I'm thinking about the U District, that it was a very affordable place to live. And at the same time that you say that means that is cheaper property to buy, right? So, I don't know whether or not there's sort of a Machiavellian idea of wanting to specifically displace people. I think it's more opportunistic, where it's like these areas have cheap property to buy that the developers can then turn around and make so much more money on. And again, this is where the city government should be stepping in and controlling that whole process. And it's amazing to me where they just, whenever I've had to talk to the city about various things, like 3 construction projects going on at the same time within one block and how that affects a business, they just seem like flummoxed. Like, well, what do you want us to do about it? You're the government. I don't know. Think of something, create a new law. Right. It's just, it almost feels like, who's steering the ship? Is it being steered by developers? Is that it? And that the city, our civic leaders are just kind of holding their hands up and saying, well, what can we do about it? I think that there are things that they could be doing about that. And I think that there are things that can be done to preserve the places that mean something to us as a community.
Right. Unfortunately, we're up against it. This has been a fast 2+ plus.
Over.
I mean, but really, this is a discussion that we need to continue. And I want to say thank you to our crosstalk guest here, to Leslie, to Kate, and to Karen. We appreciate you.
And thank you to you guys for doing
Thank
this.
you, Amari.
This is
Thank you, Cynthia.
amazing.
Yeah, thank you both.
Thank you for all your work. Appreciate you all.
Thanks, guys.
Talk soon.
This has been interesting and in a good way for first episode here. We kind of knew what to expect, but we didn't kind of know. But it's amazing is how passionate that people are about this issue, and it's good to see. It's good to see a different group of people, meaning that, a lot of times here on Converge, we hear a lot of younger people who might not have been a business owner or something like that, or not, know a long history of Uncle Bob and all that, but they're still saying the same thing. It's like, okay, this is a lot. This is, I like the word there. It's like business gentrification and the pushing out of people, but it's also good to see another generation of people who are saying the exact same thing. And I mean, it's not too many spaces in our city where a lot of people agree, coming with, especially with like an age gap. But there's so much agreement here where people feel like we keep hearing the same theme here. It's like it's profits over people.
Yeah, was it history rhymes if it doesn't repeat? And I really value the opportunity to have these intergenerational conversations. And, also, these are folks that are, I think, just through the work they do every day, pretty solutions oriented. Like, I think there's a lot of frustration with the way things are going, or, what is the city doing or not doing? But I think that on like a civic level, a lot of lessons can be learned and cues can be taken from like what Auntie Karen has done to build community, what Massive Monkeys is doing. Like, these are really creative, visionary, resilient models. We'll talk about Wanawari next week. And so I think like there are solutions and things that are happening from the people who are, on the ground and like most impacted by this, because it's like their community and their life depends on it. So I would love to see like more Auntie Karens and more Massive Monkeys and Busch Gardens. So it's been, it can be frustrating a lot of times, but I also find it inspiring to just be able to talk to folks who are doing amazing things in community.
All right, good stuff. So we're gonna look into this camera here. Oh no, okay, well fine. No. Let me go to this one here first, and then we'll go wide. All right, so I want to make everybody aware. A programming note is that we are back again next Thursday at 7:00, and for episode 2 of Community Voices, Vanishing Seattle edition, and we're going to be talking about the Central District in Ballard. And man, when you talk about parallels between the two, this is actually why watching the film on Ballard was really kind of what gave a lot of inspiration of like, wow, there's a lot of parallels in between, I think what Ballard is experiencing now and what we saw the CD going through. We saw that rapid decline from 80% population of African American now down to, I don't know, people say 10, 7, something like that. But we're talking about that next week. Another powerful episode. Really looking forward to it. This great storytelling that's going on through Vanishing Seattle.
Yeah, it's just been such a dream to partner with you, Amari, and with the whole Converge team. I just want to give you all a huge shout out. Jake and Eric and Nikki, and and to all the small business owners and community folks that share their stories with us, and the filmmakers, and just the Seattle community for hanging in there with us and being, taking an interest in these stories, because there are just so many to tell. So looking forward to next week too.
Right. All right. We're getting ready to get out of here. Before I do, want to thank our live director, Carlos Imani. Appreciate you, Carlos, and all the work you've done putting the show together. And also Gary Washington, Connor and crew, the great editors for the produced pieces that we did here. We're getting ready to get out of here for now. So tomorrow, 11 a.m., we got the regular morning update show. And tomorrow at 7 p.m., That's the 1 year anniversary show. We hope to see you guys there. Have a wonderful evening. God bless. Good night.
The Seattle Association of Black Journalists presents the Morning Update Show 1 year anniversary special this Friday, March 19th at 7 p.m. Join the Converge Media family as we broadcast live from the State Hotel in downtown Seattle, and we take a look back at the last 12 months of the Morning Update Show and a glance towards the future. This is a night you won't want to miss and definitely won't forget, as we're also joined by Julia Jesse, Basa Gordon, Marcus Harrison Green, Jake Gravbrot, Be Unique, Dre's, Eric Calligraphy, Bobby Stills, Mike Davis, Carlos Imani, Willard Jimerson, G. Prez Aspie, DJ Topspin, and more. Woo! So save the date this Friday, March 19th at 7 p.m. across all Converge Media platforms.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.